Today, I'm going to tell you about the greatest show that I have ever seen. Dungeons and Daddies is a masterpiece, maybe the best D&D podcast ever made. Now, I know I'm overhyping it, and the creators definitely wouldn't want to hear it's the best thing ever because they hate compliments, but it's good. I can't believe I've never talked about it on any of my channels. I have re-listened to the show 7 times, the entire show. Not just like a couple of episodes, no, the entire show 7 times. I've paid them $10 a month for 2 years. That's a lot of money. That's like $240. And I'm happy I paid it. I'm like a super fan. Dungeons and Daddies is a podcast created by Freddie Wong, Anthony Birch, Matt Arnold, Will Campos, and Beth May. Freddie Wong, if you don't know, is an incredible YouTuber from back in the day. One of my original childhood inspirations to make videos and be a filmmaker. And then when I eventually pivoted to YouTube, it's probably because of him. He was the Guitar Hero World Champion at one point. He worked with Corridor Crew, the VFX studio. They used to all live together in the same building. He used to shoot his videos at their set. And he created Rocket Jump, which was a company that made many incredible shows. They made Video Game High School, which is a internet classic, one of the first ever crowdfunded TV shows from the internet. They made Anime Crimes Division, which really deserved more episodes. That was really good. He's making his own feature film. Freddie Wong is an incredible creator, and I've been a big fan for years. And he might be one of the earliest original, internet celebrities, to the point where they parody, oh my god, it's the internet's Freddie Wong, all the time. The first season of Dungeons and Daddies is maybe the most perfectly plotted and written D&D show I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot of D&D shows. They have 68 and a half episodes, almost 69. They refused to release the 69th episode. They called it 68 and a half. It's fun. It's a fun show. The show follows 4 dads as they are flung into the Forgotten Realms on a quest to save their lost sons. The show's deeper themes are about generational trauma and how it moves through generations. There's a prequel series called At the Mountains of Dadness that's a Cthulhu-themed 1930s story that sort of sets up a lot of prequel stuff that is really useful in the generational trauma of it all, where they play the grandparents of the main characters. There's a sequel season 2, where they play the grandkids of the main cast, where they're all teens. The show gets a little muddy in those seasons, but it's still really good, and the characters are incredible. It hasn't finished yet, so I can't really definitively say how well it works out, but the original is just so perfectly plotted that it's almost impossible to recreate. I don't want to spoil anything about Dungeons and Daddies, but I have gushed about this show so many times that a friend of mine can accurately predict when I'm about to say it, because I say it so much. I'm definitely going to say it every time I talk to him. I'm like, do you want to see Dungeons and Daddies? It's really good. You should watch it. I got a Spotify link. Pretty good. They just added Spotify link. Anyway, it's a really good show. The story revolves around 4 dads. Each dad has a different problem raising their kid. They're a bad dad in a specific way. And as the story progresses, we learn why they're that way. We learn about their own fathers and why it has sort of driven them the way they are. And it talks about masculinity and trauma and the trickle down of familial trauma, how it moves through generations. And even more so in the sequel series, because in season 2, when it's the grandkids, there's 4 generations that you can call back to. Almost 5. And it's really interesting to see the progression of how these things slowly get better, but are always still bad and still problems. The 4 dads are really interesting characters. Each of them has a very specific problem raising their kid. Glenn Close, the rock and roll cover band dad, is best friends with his kid. So he never really helps him with his deeper emotional problems. And as the story progresses, we learn more and more about the pain that Glenn hides underneath his cool facade, and he goes through so much horrible heartbreak and problems and pain throughout the series. Ron Stampler is the emotionally detached stepfather and rogue. His problem is that his stepson and him are so different and separate, and I can relate to that a lot because I too had a stepdad growing up who was very different from me. And it's all about that entire thing. And as Ron grows to be a better person throughout the story, you learn the true trauma as to why he is the way he is and why he knows almost nothing about anything. And his story is almost so sad and traumatic that a lot of people stopped watching after the episode where they reveal his past. Henry Oak is the crunchy, munchy, hippie nature druid dad, and his story is incredible. And his main problem raising his kids is that he can't yell at them. He can't discipline his children because he cannot allow himself to be angry at them, which causes so many problems throughout the show and is beautiful. His father is fascinating and his backstory is shrouded in mystery. I love Henry Oak. He's incredible. Daryl Wilson is the stay-at-home coach dad. On the surface, he seems like the stereotypical conservative dad, but as the story goes, you learn that that's not necessarily the case. He's actually incredibly loving and kind of the best of the dads. He's sort of the good one, but even he has problems where he does not want to open up to his son and tell him about his marital problems back home, and he has so many things on his shoulders and so many problems that he just cannot tell his kid what is happening. And it's really, really emotional when he does. The story follows the four of them as they try to explore the Forgotten Realms and find their sons. Each of them gets their own arcs, which really solidify the characters, where it's their story right now, and they basically go on a quest to find each kid separately. Halfway through the show, there's a big turn where the villains are revealed, and it is incredible, and I'm not going to spoil it because it's awesome and you should watch the whole show. They then have to go on even more quests in order to escape the Forgotten Realms, and now their kids are with them, so we get to see more interactions as they sort of trade one kid in, one kid out, party system wise, as they go from place to place. And they even find a new kid named Peyton that they sort of adopt as like a mascot along the story. The show is fantastic, and the connection that they have with their audience is the best I've ever seen in a D&D show. They have a Patreon, they have viewer-submitted names and items. Peyton, one of the fan favorite characters of the show, is actually one of the fans' names that they took. They also did the same thing with Erin O'Neill, the Garden Witch. They do it a lot, actually. There's a lot of characters. They read their fans' names at the end, but not for very high numbers. They just grab a few, like 5 of the patrons who have been around for a while, and they just read their names off. So you could donate any amount of money and you get said eventually. I loved everything about this show. It was beautiful, and it still is. I listen to new episodes every 2 weeks, and they are so good. Surprisingly, their spin-offs are even better. The spin-offs are all on their Patreon and their Patreon exclusives, so most people won't even see them. But they do some of the most insane shit. Their Doctor Who one is amazing. They do one about Star Wars that's really good. There's sort of a Star Trek parody that's pretty crazy. They do a bunch. They do like 30 different things. Sons and Sons Ability. It's like a Pride and Prejudice romance story that goes off the rails real quick. They do one where they're all dogs. It's amazing. I love it more than anything. It is like one of the few things that I can call my favorite. And it'll always have a special place in my heart. Even their original show, Story Break, was really important to me, and I still re-listen to sometimes, where they would write movies together. And it just kind of goes to show you that you might be a big YouTuber, you might make your own TV show, and you might, try to do film and it not really work out. And then you can always find something else that you never expected. I don't think Freddie Wong ever expected him and all his friends to do a podcast that was like a D&D show that is like incredibly successful and has done live shows, and it has been going for years. I think this is the longest project they've ever all worked on, and I love it. I think that they had lightning in a bottle, and I love Dungeons and Daddies. It is also, surprisingly, as everything is I talk about on this channel, a little bit gay at times. Anthony Birch, the DM, the writer of Borderlands 2 and a bunch of different comic books and different things throughout media. You'll just see his name pop up sometimes in credits. He was from Hey Ash, What You Playin', which was an old web series with him and his sister. He is bi, and he makes a couple of gay characters in the show that are incredibly convincing. I've never seen scenes where gay people get rejected and that heartbreak that comes from it. A lot of the main characters, since they are dads, you would think they would be generically straight, but there is a little bit of heteroflexibility in Daryl, and Henry is definitely bi throughout the series. He sort of uncovers it more and more. But the show is definitely, I could stamp the old gay question mark on it, because they literally make out with each other in the first episode. I love it. I love the show so much. The pun title of Dungeons and Daddies, not a BDSM podcast. There's a lot of sex positive jokes that go on throughout the story. I love everything about it. It's one of the greatest shows I've ever seen in my life. And I could talk about it for hours. I'm going to try to pull myself back and sort of summarize all of this. But Dungeons and Daddies, it's not a BDSM podcast. It's a show about trauma and how it trickles down from grandparents to parents to children to grandchildren, and how each generation repeats the mistakes of the past but does a little bit better. And that even though people can change and become better, sometimes they can revert and become who they used to be, or never really learn their lesson. Sometimes people you're close to just die. It's a beautiful story. And if I could ever even create 0.1% of what they have made, I could die happy. Also, the fan animations and fan art are fucking incredible. Dungeons and Daddies for life. Anyway, that's it. Bye. You should check out my D&D show, D and Me. I made it a while ago, 2 years ago, and I have many, many episodes that I have to re-release. I'm remastering all the old episodes and re-releasing them on a new channel, so that maybe they will actually get views instead of having 1 or 2 only. It's pretty rough at the beginning, but I think as it goes, it gets a lot better. But if you don't want to watch it, that's fine too. Bye.